since January 2010. He is the founding Imam of the Community Mosque of Winston-Salem. Imam Griggs has been active in the interfaith community for approximately 2 decades and serves as a trustee member of the Council for a Parliament of the World's Religions. He is board member of Interfaith Winston-Salem, and he is advisory board member of Compassionate Winston-Salem. He is a passionate advocate for social justice and has been in the forefront of human rights struggle for decades. The Imam is a graduate of Harvard University in political science and English and is currently enrolled in Harvard Seminary, where he is working towards a graduate certificate in Islamic chaplaincy and a master in Islamic studies. He also is currently the Vice President of Islamic Circle of North America, or as we know it, ICNA, and also Chairman of the ICNA Council of Social Justice. So it's my pleasure to present to you Imam Khalid Griggs.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, now I thought that I saw people as I was walking in, but when I greeted you with this greeting of paradise, I got no response. So apparently I'm having some kind of hallucination. There's no one in this room other than me. So I'll try that one more time. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Very good. Very good. Alhamdulillah. I'd like to thank our brothers in the Imam of the Islamic Association of Greater Detroit. And I would like to thank my brothers from the Islamic Circle of North America and those who are involved with the Council for Social Justice with ICNA for affording me this opportunity. And I found out on the ride over here that this is an event that has been held on Saturday night, perhaps for the last 40 years. So I feel honored to be a part of such a long-running event, and a long-running event that has been supported and sponsored by the brothers and sisters of this institution. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you 40 more years. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to put barakah in your work as you're doing here at the IAGD. Okay. Brothers and sisters, I've been asked to talk for a few minutes about Muslims as change agents in America. And quite frankly, this may be for many of you a different way of looking at the Muslim community in the United States. Because oftentimes, and for our history in this country, many of us have not viewed ourselves as being a part of a change agency in this country. That many have immigrated. Many of you have immigrated to the United States, not necessarily for the purpose of coming to try to change any dimension or aspect of the country, but coming because this nation has provided some opportunities that for yourself and your family you may and have put yourself in a better situation, a very better personal situation. And this pace of Muslim entry into the United States coincided with some major changes in this country. And what I'm referring to, that in 1964, a major social legislation was passed in this country that had epic implications. And this was a Civil Rights Bill of 1964. And in 1965, a voting rights bill was passed in this country that gave African Americans for the first time in almost 400 years the opportunity, not that long, but since African Americans and Africans have been in this country, in 1965, it was the first time that that population was legally allowed to cast a ballot. And this bill was something that was passed on a federal level. And even though it was significant, and even though this 1964 Civil Rights Bill had far-reaching implications, the practical application of these bills was stopped. It was not immediately implemented because so many Southern segregationists were determined that they were never going to allow black people to live in their neighborhoods, that they will never allow them to hold certain high-paying jobs, that they would never allow them to just comfortably go to the ballot box and to vote. And so in 1965, after this bill was passed, during the same year, a new immigration bill was passed. And many of you, but more probably of your fathers or your grandfathers, were able to come into the United States, not in small numbers, but now the doors were open for so-called immigration. And it was a selective kind of immigration. It was not just everyone who wants to come to America from Pakistan or India. You're welcome to come. This was not what that bill was about. It was not saying that anyone who wants to come from West Africa, we open the doors and you can come. Anyone who wants to come from Afghanistan and other countries, come. No, it was an immigration bill that said that if you have the requisite skills, if you have the requisite potential to further this nation in the areas of science or technology, in the areas of education, now you can come, you can immigrate in great volumes, you can come to America. And when so many immigrated to this nation, those of us who were Muslim in this country, and those who were Muslim into the decade of the 70s, we felt the way that many Native Americans must have felt when Christopher Columbus was given the honor and distinction of saying that you discovered North America, while there were people standing on the shores watching him sail to his islands in the Caribbean. But yet every year on October the 12th, he's given credit for discovering the New World, when there are people already there. And so I'm saying, and I'm going to tie this in a way and move forward in a way that I think everyone would understand when I say that the African American Muslim community must have felt like those indigenous people, those Native Americans, watching our Muslim brothers and sisters coming into the American landscape, and over the years establishing a very significant presence. And that's wonderful. Inshallah, it would have been great if it had even happened earlier. But the problem was that there were Muslims already present. There were masjids that were already established. And so Islam did not start after 1965 in the United States. There was a presence of Muslim masjids. There was a presence of Muslim organizations. There was a presence of Muslim campus organizations. And so placing this in context, we have to look and we say, okay, the Muslim presence has exponentially increased since 1965 in this country. And now across the landscape of America, we have wonderful facilities like we have here. We have a census of Muslims that perhaps we're up to 1%, but based on almost over 350 million people in this country, we still, with all of our increasing numbers, still don't represent a good 1%, perhaps, maybe 1.5% of the total population. So I want to start this brief discussion really from this point. And that is that now that we have a critical mass of Muslims in this country, now that the suitcases that many of your fathers or grandfathers may have left packed at the front door, a good buddy and friend of mine, Dr. Altaf Hussein, who is the vice president of the Islamic Society of North America, tells a story, and I think it's a very insightful story. He talks about, and Altaf's family is from India. And Altaf talks about how his grandfather, and growing up, that what he saw at the front door every time he went out the front door was a packed suitcase. So one day he said he got enough courage and asked his grandfather, why do you have this suitcase here? It's like you're getting ready to run out the door any moment. Why is this suitcase here? And the grandfather told Altaf, and Altaf said that his grandfather consistently reminded the family, this suitcase is at the door. So you will never forget that you are here for a purpose, and when you accomplish that purpose, we're all moving back. As a matter of fact, Altaf said, his grandfather said, I'll give us 7 years and we'll be back in India. Well, that suitcase may still be in Altaf's family's door, but there's nobody in that house, starting with Dr. Altaf, who looks at his home, having grown up in America, as any place other than the United States, not making a denial of their ancestral roots. But the majority of Muslims today, no matter where this population has come from, look at America as home. And so now it's not just about making and having a better life for the families. A lot of the Muslims in this country, we can now say, been there, done that. That the Muslim population has been in America enough to dig very deep roots, to have accomplishments with so many different social markers, that now is the time, based on what is the need, the greatest need of America today. Now is the time for us as Muslims in this country recognize our divinely mandated responsibility to organize ourselves in a way, to carry ourselves in a way, to attend universities with a mentality that we are here, we're here to stay, and now that we are here, we're going to fulfill this mission of Islam. It doesn't mean that I have to be a da'i, that every person that I see walking downtown, I have to go up to them with a pamphlet and talk to them about Islam. Let me share this real quickly. I did that as a young Muslim. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week on the streets and neighborhoods of Washington, D.C. I embraced Islam in my senior year of university. And during that senior year, after becoming Muslim, I was a part of a group called the Islamic Party in North America that was headquartered in Washington, D.C. And they placed me in charge of the dawah. They placed me in charge of presentations and have a crew of 14 brothers, as I said, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, going through the streets of Washington, D.C. We would set up dawah tables downtown, in the busiest areas of downtown. We would do all kinds of things. So there was hardly a person that would walk past me in those days that I wouldn't just stop them in some kind of way to share this message of Islam with them. Whether they were late for work, whether they were going home to pick up their child, it didn't matter. You got to listen to this dawah. I'm giving you a message that will save mankind. I've since, I believe anyway, matured a little bit with my Islam. And so even though I recognize that even today I have this responsibility for dawah, I have come to understand that I have an equally important responsibility to present myself, to present to the best of my ability, to help organize other Muslims in a way that we can become that missing quality, that quality in the United States, that Allah may be the saving grace of this nation. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Qur'an, and just for any society at any time, that were it not for that group of believers who are calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night, and people are still responding to that call, that He would just wipe out all of the wicked societies. And if we look at, I'm not trying to be too critical, but I have to tell you what I really believe. And there are very few nations on the earth right now that promote moral corruption, that promote this rugged individualism. It's about me. I don't care whether you survive or make it or not. Who will take their women and display them in ways that they are attractive to men other than their husbands, to promote products. That if you want to buy a shoe brush, look on the television and you see an unclad female in America selling a car, selling a brush, selling a set of tools, nothing to do with females at all. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in this country as a part of this ummah. There are more Muslims in America, regardless of our total population in this country. There are more Muslims in America than there are in many Muslim majority countries. We are not an insignificant, to be overlooked part of this ummah. You know the statistics. We recite it all the time. We are the most per capita educated and with academic achievements of any Muslim population in the world. Per capita, we have the highest average of income of any Muslim group in the world. That's counting all of our oil-rich nations. Count the per capita, the highest group is here. And so many of the social markers that determine where a nation stands, those secular markers. The Muslim community in the United States is at the top, if not at the very top, very near being number one with these secular markers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have us here to contribute to the domestic economy, to invest more money into the Wall Street casino. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given us this critical mass of Muslims and brought together the brilliance of the Muslim minds
and put us in one country, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not brought together the most diverse, racially and ethnically diverse group of Muslims of anywhere on the planet, like in America, just for us to live the American dream. Just for us to continue to say, look at how good we're doing. And I'm not saying we're saying this literally, but if we ignore the role that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned to this ummah, wherever we find ourselves, whatever time we find ourselves in, it is our duty, our responsibility to be those agents of change, to be those that the weak and the oppressed who are crying out that, oh Allah, send us someone. These people are oppressing us. We don't have a way out. What can we do? Who is it that will listen to these cries in America and understand what we need to do better than this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No one else can better provide the total lifestyle, the total deen that Americans are so desperately in need of, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. Let me share a couple of quick things and I'll be done. I don't know how many of you know that when you go into the United States Supreme Court, you step into the front door of the U.S. Supreme Court and you'll see on the walls up high, you can't miss it, and you see on the walls people that were picked by government officials, by judicial officials. You see people that they have designated as being the greatest lawgivers in the history of mankind. Guess who they selected and put up on this wall? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the Prophet of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is placed on the walls. Now that doesn't increase his status. I'm not giving it that they patted us on the head and said, we put your prophet on the wall, so you should be happy. We're saying he was one of the greatest. That's not why I'm saying this. But I'm saying this to say that there was an acknowledgement from a people who have demonstrated no love for Islam on a government level, that they have selected to put in their highest body of where cases are tried, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the most prestigious law schools in the world, Harvard Law School, Harvard School of Law. Now they have in their faculty library, for anyone who steps into the entranceway of this library on the campus of Harvard University, Harvard Law School, they actually have what they say are the greatest expressions of justice. The greatest expressions of justice that human beings have ever uttered out of their mouths. So I said, wow, that's really curious. I wonder what kind of expressions are they going to include with this? Give me liberty or give me death, Patrick Henry. These kinds of things. You would expect to see that. But one would not expect to see Ayah 135 of Surah An-Nisa on the wall of this prestigious law school. For people to say, if you want to see the greatest expressions of justice, here they are. We've compiled them for you. So walk through our doors, and this is what you see. You see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanding this ummah to be standard bearers for justice. Stand out firmly with resolve. Not just stand, but be an example. Be one of those and those group of people. Be as an individual one who is just a guiding light, a change agent as it relates to justice in this country. This is our role. And so the ayah just continues quickly, coming to a close. That the ayahs, you know better than I, continue. Stand out, be a standard bearer for justice, even if it's against yourself, even if it's against your parents, even if it's against other kids, your grandma, your grandpa, your uncle, your aunt, your sister, even if it's going against them, even if it's going, whether it's against rich or poor. Don't have selective justice. Like in America, where if you have enough money, unless you've been a serial killer or done something really hideous, you can pay and buy your way out of it. Don't apply justice based on the depth of someone's bank account. And that's not who we are to be. It's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, believers, you are not those people. We are not in America to sit quietly and act as if we don't see a nation that has gone off the rails according to the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in the Qur'an and given us in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, brothers and sisters, I am a part, as was said in the introduction, of the organization Islamic Circle of North America, and I do a few things, but one of the things that I do, I'm overseeing the department of a recently activated department of the Islamic Circle of North America called Council for Social Justice. This particular council has as its mission to educate ourselves as members of this organization and members who are committed to this particular work, but also to be an assertive expression of active Muslim involvement in the life of the general community. Not in the marketplace. If it's in the marketplace, it's there to point out the injustices and the inequities. To be a witness to those things and to those people who are doing other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. And I'll close on this note. I was told to close at this time, at 7:55. It looks like at this clock it's 7:55. So I'll close on this particular note. That is very important for us all to remember, and I'm starting with myself. The older that I get, the more constant the reminder is, a self-reminder. And someone may be talking about the Akhirah, talking about something. I still say it's a reminder to me, because I'm so much closer to the end than I have been at the beginning of this journey as a Muslim. And so I know I don't delude myself into thinking that any moment I may not even live to walk away from this rostrum. I'm very aware that I am going to have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going like you. We're going to be judged. You lived at this particular time in America. These are the things that were going on. What did you do, Khalid, to speak out against these things, to enjoin good, to forbid evil? What did you do with whatever physical and human resources Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you? And I really believe that I will be questioned by Allah. You lived in America through the second half of the 20th century into the 21st century. And you know what was going on. What did you do? And I believe this Muslim community that we are going to be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not how well did we do according to a nation's social markers. We won't be asked about What educational achievements did we have? We won't be asked about the diversity of our community. But I honestly believe of those questions, we will be asked about in the face of what existed in that first quarter of the 21st century. Some of you are going to be around, inshallah, much, much longer than that. But what did you do during this first part of the 21st century when the nation and the world was crying out for someone to help us? Oh Allah, send us someone as a protector. Send someone who can defend our honor. Send someone to us that can help us worship only you, Allah. And that day is coming soon. I thank you so much for allowing me these few minutes with you. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless all of you in this community. Assalamu alaikum.
So as you notice,